Capitalism built the car you're driving, and socialism built the road beneath you. Oh my god, Americans do not understand what capitalism and socialism are, and they're living in a propaganda fantasy world because socialist China is already producing way more cars with way more innovation than any capitalist country. That's because a lot of their car companies are partially state-owned and get subsidies from the government. The visible hand of their Communist Party gets things going, and then the invisible hand of the market follows the money, like a dog. It's called market socialism. Now, if we're gonna talk about capitalists and car manufacturing, yes, we gotta talk about Elon Musk, especially considering the irony that Tesla now manufactures over half of its cars in China. But let's start with the first ever evil car capitalist, Henry Ford. So I knew that Henry Ford was really bad to his workers and was a raging anti-Semite, but I didn't realize that Hitler himself called Ford his, quote, inspiration, and had a life-size portrait of Ford behind his desk. Hitler said, quote, I shall do my best to put his theories into practice in Germany. Yikes. Ford was a capitalist. That means he owned the car industry and got to do whatever he wanted with the profits. And what this one individual wanted to do was start an anti-Semitic newspaper. And this is what capitalists do every time when push comes to shove. Working people's real problems become so bad because the profits of their labor are being siphoned up to all the people who own the factories they work in. And if you ask for more, you just get fired and replaced. So eventually the working class can't afford to buy what they produce, and this can collapse the capitalist system if new value isn't brought in through colonialism and imperialism. So when working people catch on and start fighting for their rights, the capitalists have two options. They can start paying working people what they deserve, or blame all the problems they caused on minorities, which is much more profitable. So when you understand this, you see very clearly that Elon Musk is just a modern day Henry Ford. He used the profits from his car company to buy a big chunk of social media. And I'm not at all exaggerating when I say that Twitter is flooded with literal Nazi propaganda now, memes praising Hitler, and every single ad I see is for some Republican media like Tucker Carlson. Twitter today is the modern equivalent of Henry Ford's fascist newspaper. The fascists have just added trans people to the same minority scapegoat list. But fascism aside, even though fascism should be enough of a red flag on its own, we've seen this pattern of capitalism leading to monopoly and corruption over and over again because all the capitalists kill or buy up their competition and create one big corporation, and they have a direct profit motive to corrupt politicians, like donate $1 million to this dude's campaign for $20 million in tax breaks. We've seen this go nuts throughout history for like 100 years now, and people are still like, well, if we want really nice cars, we need one rich guy to get really rich off making them, and then if he wants to use that money to flood society with Nazi propaganda, that's his No, this is just not true. If you are following new developments in car technology, China's making all of the really amazing cars right now, especially for electric vehicles. BYD built an amphibious electric SUV. It actually floats and gets propelled by the wheels in water, which is especially hilarious because that's something Musk said that the Cybertruck would do, but it obviously doesn't do that. And there are several Chinese companies now that make electric vehicles for under $10,000, and they're actually pretty nice. Meanwhile, the European Union has put BYD under an audit. The biggest Chinese EV company is being audited because the EU is suspecting that the Chinese government may have unfairly subsidized their electric vehicle innovation, which, first of all, they have no evidence of. BYD has said that they've kept that all really separate. But isn't it great that when capitalists can't compete, they use the state to throttle the innovations of socialism? EV technology and other green tech should be a priority since the earth is burning to a crisp, but capitalism treats it like a threat. Anyway, these capitalist cars are killing the planet with their emissions, so we need some socialism to build high-speed rail already, like in China, where they built 68% of the world's high-speed rail in just 10 years. And I know what y'all are gonna say, China pollutes a lot because they manufacture everything for the rest of the world. But China actually ranks 14th in carbon emissions per person. The United States, Canada, Australia, South Korea, and Japan, y'all's faves, all emit 2 to 3 times more CO2 per person than China. That's because, thanks to socialism, over the next 5 years, China is going to produce as much renewable capacity as every other country combined, plus an additional 30%. So Yeah, capitalism isn't when we make cool cars, it's when the world burns to a crisp while the rich and powerful blame minorities. Socialism is when we save the world from climate catastrophe, and we get way cooler cars for way cheaper because they're all being made by robots, like in this factory in China. What you're seeing is called developing the productive forces. As long as China can improve production faster than the capitalists, then they're gaining power and the capitalists are losing power. If you study Marxism, you learn that controlling the means of production is power. And if you really study Marxism, you see how China's reform and opening up was what was necessary to bring in the capital needed for China to control so much of the world's means of production, and then develop their productive forces rapidly enough to outpace the capitalists and win the long game for socialism.